If you are a Formula One fan, you'd know by now that the Formula One Championship introduced a new set of rules in the form of a budget cap after years of to and fro. However, this budget cap has been a hassle for some of your favorite teams like Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari, the teams that are known to use massive amounts of capital to secure their place at the top of the F1 standings table year after year. But it seems like Ferrari's team principal has a quirky solution in mind to ease the slash in the budget. Hey guys, and welcome back to F1 Nation. Today, we will be taking a deeper look at Ferrari's unique solution to pay for damages under the budget cap. Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more F1 content just like this, and don't forget to turn on post notifications to never miss out on our latest uploads. Without any further delay, let's dive right in. Before we talk about the Ferrari team principal Mattia Binotto's statement, we must understand the F1 budget cap in detail. Formula One powerhouses like Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull were infamous for the amount of money they spent each year to keep themselves at the top of the league, with the amount exhausted often soaring over a whopping $400 million by each of the teams. This gave them a competitive edge over the smaller teams in the league who couldn't afford to spend as much on vehicle development, spare parts, and repair costs. However, with the new budget cap in place, all the 10 Formula One teams are supposed to spend no more than $145 million in 2021, with this number planned to go as low as $135 million by 2023 onwards. While the lower and mid-table teams are elated by this rule, as they believe they finally have a chance to compete, the top-tier teams are struggling to pull down their expenditure. Now that we have been acquainted with the latest budget cut rules, let's look at the happenings over at the top-table teams of the series. Firstly, these mighty teams with over 1,000 employees each had to lay off staff to make expenses manageable. But as the 2021 season has progressed, the teams have faced unforeseen complications. Ferrari recently revealed their damage bill since the beginning of the 2021 season, and the $2.5 million invoice seems a little difficult to digest. This bill is supported by the incident that took place at the Hungarian GP, where Aston Martin's Lance Stroll knocked Ferrari's Charles Leclerc out of the race after a collision at the first corner of the Hungaroring racetrack. What isn't surprising is that Ferrari isn't the only team to endure big repair bills. Not long ago, in the British Grand Prix, championship contenders and rivals Max Verstappen of Red Bull and Lewis Hamilton of Mercedes were involved in a hazardous 180 mph accident at the ninth turn of the Silverstone circuit, called the Copse. Fortunately, Verstappen remained uninjured but was taken out of the race after crashing into the barriers, while Hamilton went on to win the race despite receiving a 10-second penalty. This incident reportedly cost Red Bull a sizable $1.8 million in repair. This wasn't the end of Red Bull's misery, as both the Red Bull race cars sustained damages during the Hungarian Grand Prix in a multi-car accident caused by Valtteri Bottas of Mercedes. This will further build on Red Bull's damage bills, which is not something they will be looking forward to while in the midst of the first season with the budget cap. In the light of all these damage bills suffered by the teams, Ferrari's team principal Mattia Binotto suggested that the guilty team should pay for the rivals' damage repair bills. Ferrari believes in the idea that teams shouldn't be burdened financially because of the crash damages caused by opponents. Binotto is of the opinion that if the driver of a team is not guilty, then suffering the damage while also following the budget cap is even more of a consequence. However, the team principal clarified that he doesn't think exempting the crash repairs from the budget cap isn't a good idea, as it could be challenging to be policed. He presumes there is potential for further discussion about this suggested policy with other team principals, the FIA and F1. Mattia Binotto further commented that this policy would make the drivers more responsible. As we saw earlier, Red Bull has also lost a significant amount of their budget to crashes prompted by its rival, Mercedes. However, Red Bull's team principal, Christian Horner, differs his views from that of Binotto. According to Horner, the damage from the crashes shouldn't be included in the budget cap. Horner argued that Red Bull lost a severe number of points due to both the accidents that took place, and having the financial burden on its back doesn't make it any easier. It reaffirms that when you have an incident that isn't yours, you're paying a significant price for it, said a frustrated Horner in Hungary. Horner is of the firm belief that the crash damages are not accounted for under the new budget cap and suggests that the FIA should look into the matter in greater detail. These statements from Horner and Binotto weren't received well by F1 experts and critics worldwide. The policies suggested by the team principals of these big organizations seem very selfish at initial thought. First of all, it raises the question of whether these teams would be willing to pay smaller cash-pinched teams if one of their drivers caused an accident. If Ferrari asks for crash compensation from the opponent teams, it is only fair that they pay for crash damages too if their drivers ever provoke a mishap. Secondly, verifying the actual amount of the crash damage seems like an absurd idea, as the FIA would have to approve the cost of every single part that would have to be replaced. This would be a very time-consuming and strenuous task, thereby making it highly impractical. Another aspect of the race that these suggested policies overlooked is grid penalties. In an F1 season, drivers are allowed to change the internal combustion engines of their vehicles 3 times without any liability. Following 3 engine changes, drivers are then penalized with a system that affects their grid position at the start of the next race. Since Red Bull has had a string of tragedies in recent months, both Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez are on their 3rd engine, and grid penalties seem almost inevitable for both the drivers. If the solutions suggested by Horner or Binotto were taken into consideration, a new system would have to be created in which a team is allowed to use an extra power unit if they lose one due to an accident that they didn't cause. This, however, seems very unlikely to happen. The new financial rules can also affect the F1 series as a whole in other ways. Teams can now lodge complaints against rival teams if they suspect the team of breaking the budget cap or outplaying the financial regulation in any way. The team would have to submit a report to the FIA with valid evidence within the first 4 months of the following season. Another area teams would find difficult to manage is spare parts and components. F1 teams attentively manage spare parts, but the budget cap could affect the smooth supply of parts, and some teams would have to work fatigued components for a longer period of time. Teams are also required to be more transparent now, as they now have to determine and report all of their costs and expenses to the FIA. The FIA also has the authority to audit or investigate the teams in case they find any irregularities in the cost submissions. With the budget cap in place, teams would also have to find a balance between investing in the development of their cars for this year and the 2022 season. With all new technical regulations set to be in action from 2022, many teams carried over the major components of their vehicles from 2020 into this season. The more money teams can lay aside this season, the more is the investment amount that teams could carry over into the development of their new vehicles for 2022. Perhaps the most significant point overlooked by the budget cap is the expenditure of the teams on drivers. Bigger teams tend to spend a lot of cash on their drivers, which not only includes driver salaries, but also includes other expenses, like travel, accommodation, and fitness. While the possibility of a driver salary cap is imminent in the future, there has been no official announcements yet. So then, what do we conclude from all this drama? The new budget cap has definitely affected the functioning of all teams, though some more negatively than others. While smaller teams like Haas feel they have a shot against the big 3 at last, the bigger giants like Red Bull and Ferrari have been suggesting ways to avoid the cost of unexpected crash damages. While these teams could just waive off the repair fees earlier, they now have to be very cautious about managing the $145 million they get to spend. While Red Bull thinks that it is a good idea to not include the damage repair costs under the budget cap, Ferrari finds it easier if the guilty party pays for the damages caused. While both of these suggestions are ill-considered and far-fetched, it just goes on to show the extent to which the teams would go to not give up their high positions on the leaderboard. Alright guys, and with that, we have come to the end of today's video. What do you think about the Formula 1 budget cap? Do you think the solution Ferrari is putting forward to pay for crash damages is fair? Do let us know in the comments down below. If you liked the video, then smash the like button, and don't forget to share the video with other F1 fanatics. Until next time, bye!